Alrighty, welcome back to another episode of Transcend Breaking Boundaries. And today's episode, very needed discussion will be had. These two beautiful black women. How we doing?
Great. Thank you so much for having me.
Awesome. So I don't know if I say the word correctly, so I'm gonna give it a shot. Doula, right? Doula. Did I say it correctly? I did.
I want to hear a couple tries first.
Right.
Doula.
Acceptable.
Except
Okay,
shit.
good.
So we're gonna have a conversation with someone who is a doula, certified doula, and someone who is in the process of becoming one. Especially with what has happened with who we got running this country and the upcoming fears that is on everybody's minds, honestly.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I'm excited to actually get into this, but let everyone know a little bit about yourselves.
All right. My name is Sheree, and I am a Black biracial doula. I certified in the Pacific Northwest through Pacific Alliance of Labor Support, PALS Doulas. I certified during COVID, and it was a beautiful experience. Was happy to be a part of some amazing births, and look forward to having many more.
Nice.
My name is Haley. I am a doula in training. I am redoing my doula training because I was not satisfied with my first go round. I am also a wellness advocate, out of practice yoga teacher, community herbalist. So I do a lot of things kind of just in the wellness, health area, but from a very holistic space.
Gotcha. So the first thing I'm just gonna ask, how you doing, both of you, mentally? With this as a black woman, how you doing?
Doing.
How you doing?
I am doing.
I think we are all coping as a whole, and that's about where we're at. We are coping. It's a one day at a time process. Sometimes I think it really is just a 1 minute at a time, just showing up for ourselves in the moment and just getting through. So I can see that a lot of us are all in the same boat. We're all sharing some fears and some deep concerns. As a black woman, I'm outraged. I'm not even going to lie. Like, I'm outraged, and we go through a process. I think it's a process of emotions rather than, how are you doing? It's a process.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel that. I feel like I've been in a space of checking in on folks and checking in with myself, and also just trying to find comfort where I can. Unfortunately, like, we've been in this position before. I mean, like, literally in terms of, like, we are having deja vu, like, politically with this new incoming administration. But also just as black people, as people who have been oppressed in this country, in this modern society, like, we've been in these spaces before where we've had to rally against, like, bullshit and, like, had to come out on the other side stronger, and kind of finding those moments. Like, I had a conversation with the elder at work the other day where I was like, yo, you're really happy. Like, you're like really happy right now. And she was like, am I? Because she was like, I'm mad. She was like, but I gotta keep carrying on. And so, I'm glad I look happy. And it was like, you know what, you're right. Like, life is gonna have to go on. And I think that's kind of the space I'm trying to occupy, of like the going on.
I think that's where my mental is too, is the fact that this is a repeat of it all, and I've survived it all. But it's more, I guess, I'm fearful of the stuff the doom that is set to come. Because although others have lived through it, our generation of individuals have not. Our elders have lived through, all that he's about to take us back to the Jim Crow era of things. But we have not lived through that. And we are of a generation that takes mental health on a whole nother level as well. And we're also a generation where a lot of us don't take shit anymore either. So, and that's pretty much where I'm at. I'm not about to sit here and take a lot of stuff. So I do constantly check in with myself so that I don't go out here and go to jail because I done slapped a white person upside the head. Um, but but that's I get that. Um, Jumping right into it. So my understanding of doulas and where I mean what I'm visioning for the future, especially with you got individuals who are dying in parking lots, who cannot go get health care because you have doctors who are refusing and so forth. You know, how do y'all step in to be able to assist so that we are not having a pile of women just dying on the streets?
Mm. Um. What a heavy question to start with. um. I'm gonna let you take that
Okay. Well, I am just going to say this. I find some relief in kind of what we touched upon earlier is this is not new.
Mm-hmm.
And if there was ever a time to be living, now is the time because we have the information. Our ancestors saved the information and passed it down to us. They passed it down to us through written word, through the stories that were told, to the things that were taught. We don't always understand them, but the more that we get into losing our rights and our privileges as a whole, we will start to connect the dots. And that is what I am progressively finding. So we know what's going on, okay? We have this is the things that we learned, my generation learned in our history books, okay? We have the privilege of learning about CRT. All of these things, I think, have prepared us for, there is going to be a battle ahead no matter what happens. I think this was a long time coming. This has just simply given people an extra reason, to be hateful. On the flip side of that, when I chose to become a doula, I was always kind of a natural doula. Had a very strong maternal instinct, and I always kind of show up when it's crucial, when things are not good, because for whatever reason, that's just where I show up the best. And I am privileged to have had the knowledge that when COVID-19 was happening, things needed to change. A couple of my friends ended up, in hospital rooms by themselves, text messaging and back and forth. And I wanted to be of help. So I really did. I just decided, you know what, I need to act. I wanted to show up. I was just getting into getting involved with protesting, and this was my protest. And it's been a journey. But really, I think that we have an opportunity with this obstacle. And I use those two words very closely because you can see it as one or the other. It really is a matter of perspective. Mm-hmm. Being a doula, the doulas have been around since the beginning of time. It is simply a person that shows up in the moments of vulnerability when one is laboring. And for me, knowing that people have been showing up since the beginning of time, and that's simply what my job to do is just to show up. I cannot always prevent fatalities. I'm not the overseer of all, but I do know that I have a gift of when I show up, it matters and magical things happen. So that is simply how I handle what is coming. Just knowing that I naturally have a gift. I'm going to use my gift to help other people and to connect with other people and to do my best to try to understand the world around me and help others too as well. So I don't think that it really is like we're putting on some red cape and let's go save the world. I really think it is showing up in the moments that are the most vulnerable and when it most counts.
Yeah, that's like advocacy in general too.
Absolutely.
And I do feel like that's how I show up in all of my work. I feel that a lot of people that are called to birth work have that like through line of like there is a calling to serve, a calling to support and show up for others. And yeah, like I said, I feel like that shows up in all the different work that I do. I think specifically with this birth work, Um, as these challenges come up, it kind of just feels like you said, like you have to step up. You have to show up for other people. And the more that I try to distance myself from it, the more I feel like the
Calls you
universe
back.
yeah, it's like, all of a sudden everybody around you is pregnant. Like, like
Everybody's
just,
got a question.
yeah, everyone, or like, it's like I'm in the grocery store and I'm hearing someone give like terrible information. It's like,
Yeah.
hi, like
That was misinformation. I'm so
Right.
sorry. This is your spirit guide.
right, like maybe we shouldn't give that newborn baby water. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and it's just like, just because that is what someone told you, because that's what they did years ago, information changes. We learn things.
We learn, we grow, we
Right,
evolve.
exactly.
Absolutely.
So in those moments, it's kind of like, dang, like, yeah, I guess I'm really supposed to be doing this. So yeah, I'm like in the process of wanting to go back to school and things like that. So showing up for myself, showing up for the fact that I have this gift and want to nurture it, and then showing up for all these random places, random people. That has been a lot of my drive to get back into the work, for sure. And everything that's going on in the world, it really just kind of drives it home. It feels like it's a bit serendipitous.
Oh, absolutely.
A little bit,
So my given all right, so obviously I'm trans. Everybody knows that. Now there are more trans people having babies, more trans men having babies. More black trans men. I mean, because I think we all knew of Max on Oprah.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
15, 16 some years ago,
Mm-hmm.
and the world was shocked that a man was having a baby.
Yeah.
But there are more trans men who are open and doing that. Healthcare in general for trans people is zilch. You got to pretty much cheat the government to get healthcare as a trans person. And healthcare for black women in general when they are pregnant is ridiculous. I mean, no matter how much money you got, I mean, what is it? Venus said Serena went through issues as well when she was pregnant. So my question with that, knowing all of that, how do you think you can step in and be there for the LGBT community, for those who don't actually have as much access to healthcare, like where you can't necessarily be in a hospital with them, or or even the process of wanting to start caring and doing that whole process. Where do you come in with that?
So I think one of the, like, it's not really well known, but if you're a doula, if you know, you know. Doulas are like a big, huge resource notebook of everything that has to do with birthing. So as a doula, it depends on, each doula is different. We all have our methods. Me personally, I think that a big thing with wherever I'm located is getting involved with my community, getting involved with the LGBTQIA community, all of my resources locally, understanding what is available and out there, compiling my information before I actually make the attempt to work with families. And I think that's very important to talk about a subject like as a new doula. I think it's important to know your stuff first, right? How am I going to help you if I don't know how to help you? How am I going to give you resources if I don't have the resources? So I think it's important going into, if you're going to be working with the LGBTQIA community, I think it's really important to understand your biases, understand your weaknesses, and understand your resources. Those are three things that I think are probably the most important, so that, and when questions come up, there's, you don't always have the questions or the answers to the questions that are asked. You don't always have that. But the best part about it is that when you're a doula, you build community, you speak with other doulas, you network with other people from the LGBTQIA community that have birthing people that are willing to share their story and be transparent and to be a resource for other birthing people. I think it's really important to notate that, like, doulas are there for more than just like mental and physical support. Doulas are also there for resourcing, for connecting, for getting you involved with your community, and for getting you involved with other people who have shared in the same experiences.
Yeah, that was a great answer. Um, Education is always a big thing for me.
Absolutely.
So I am in the process of compiling all my resources, and getting all that together. I'm still relatively new to the state, so
Me as well. I moved
yeah.
here about a year ago, and so
Yeah.
I'm working on that. I'm thinking I'm probably going to do the midwife route just because unfortunately the certification process, you understand that.
Yeah, and
that's a whole,
that's a whole other thing. Right, we have so many things we can talk
Yes.
about. But having resources to share with folks, because unfortunately there are almost always more resources than people are aware of.
Always.
There's always a bunch of uh, county and state resources that people don't know that they have access to. Especially if you do qualify for like WIC or Medicaid.
Absolutely.
Then and I know a lot of those resources just by the nature of my like day-to-day work. So making sure that people have that. Making sure that people, just know like the basic information of where they are in their pregnancy. Making sure that people are safe, like, just like tapping into like what's your whole situation right now, like what are all the like resources and supports that you need, because like your day-to-day and like well-being stress also has to be taken care of while you're also figuring out like all the ins and outs of your pregnancy. Like, what are you doing with this pregnancy? Like, are you taking care of yourself? Are you taking care of this life that you may or may not want to create? So just that, like, what education do you need to get you from like point A to point like Z of this pregnancy? I'm also really big on just like self-care. So like that's another way that I want to show up for folks, especially in this time. Things are really stressful.
Oh, absolutely.
If you don't know any of these resources, especially like with focusing on like the queer community, especially for me as a person who is queer and doesn't always read queer. I try to keep that I try to keep that in mind when I work with people.
Yeah.
And knowing where my limitations are. Like,
I think that you just touched on something so powerful. Absolutely. Knowing where your limitations are and knowing where your boundaries are, that is critical to being a doula.
Everyone is not meant to be your client.
And you can never fill from an empty cup. So if you have a client that's just taking a little more than you have to give, you have to understand that there has to be boundaries created. And I think that with the self-care that we provide to our, our clients, we also have to give that same, care back to ourselves so that it's a full circle kind of a thing. So, we may have resources, for self-care and stuff like that for our own selves that we, share with you. And, it becomes really an entire circle of like giving and receiving. You're going to exchange information. You're going to learn from me. I'm going to learn from you. And once you have the resources in the community to tap into, I think that when you have more questions about, be it from anatomy to, child rearing to whatever it is, you're going to have a community, you're going to have resources, and you're going to have people who've already been there. So it really does become kind of a community effort. It's not just a doula educating somebody. Sometimes doulas need to be educated too.
For sure.
So I think it's a community effort and learning to care for others as well as caring for yourself simultaneously.
Yeah. And just to circle back specifically to your question about like working within the queer community, and what I was saying about like limitations, like if I know just like doing just general, so this is usually what happens, right? I'm wherever I'm at and someone is pregnant and they're like, did you say you're a doula? Like, so however that connection happens, I'm getting the information from you. Let's see, like, to what extent can I help you? You're telling me that, you are like, I really want to chest feed and, I've had this, that, and that surgery done. And, I'm like, you know what? This now seems like it might be out of my wheelhouse. I can give you the information that I know to be correct, but I don't want to give you any information that's not going to work for you specifically, because every person is different, every body is different.
Absolutely.
Right? So every tidbit of information about the human body, whether it's about pregnancy or whatever, might not apply to you
It's
specifically.
dependent. Yeah, I was going
right?
to say it depends on the person. It's body specific.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So if you're giving me like information where I know off the bat, like this is out of what I can handle right now, whether it's my time, whether it's my like knowledge base, whether it's just like your energy and my energy is not going to work. I need to now say, okay, like I'm going to give you what I can give you, but I'm also going to try to connect you to someone else, you know? And I think that's really important when working with more oppressed groups, because that warm handoff or like soft handoff can be really important, as opposed to like, I'm just going to send you this list of resources that I give to everybody and let you do what you need to do. Like that doesn't sit right with my spirit. Like I need to make sure that like I pass the baton at least a little bit, you know what I mean? And that's not always possible, but I think particularly when I'm working within my own communities, if I'm working with someone who's like a Black woman or a Black person, or like, you know, you just if we spoke and I'm like, you might a little bit be kinfolk, you might even just be skinfolk, like I'm gonna try to help you a little bit.
Yes,
You know what I mean? I'm gonna try to
absolutely.
do my due diligence, like, and maybe that's me just trying to get into Black heaven, but like
Brownie points have a whole new meaning.
I'm trying, you know? Yeah, so it's
Black
just,
heaven.
especially in Nevada, I'm coming from, like, excuse me, Nevada. I just
You
was
have to
told
put
that
the
I
in there.
say it wrong. Nevada. Coming from the East Coast, resources are different. Access to healthcare is different. The limitations to what is available are different. So I try to make sure that people know what they need to know and point them to, if I can't tell you, let me try to tell you where to go. You know?
So in a place like here, Nevada,
Nevada.
in a place like here where resources, I mean, because all there is for the LGBT community is the center, LV. Now they just opened up another place, I believe.
There's also in Henderson, they have a LGBTQ center as well that is not connected to the center.
That's not
in
okay.
Clark
So
County.
so then that would be three that I know of. Coming from DC, where there is a lot of resources, and then even in California, even where I started my transition in San Diego, in Hillcrest, I mean,
all coastal areas.
yeah,
All
where
inner city areas.
the resources is definitely abundant. So in places like this where there is, I mean, because one of my doctors that I even have out here, she's telling me how a lot of her trans patients who are trying to get surgeries and this and that, Nevada does not have those types of resources to actually point them to some place. So in a place like Nevada, where there are essentially really starting from ground zero and trying to build, how do we get what y'all can give into these places so that they actually know that you all exist for the community, so that they can think of a future, they can feel that they actually have a future to have a child, and that's an option.
I have a lot of initial thoughts.
I have a lot of feelings and a lot of thoughts as well. I'm going to preface this by saying our future is very unsure, and for the safety of myself and others, that is something I have yet to navigate. What I will say is that where there is not a way, one will be made, and that has always rang true to me. I think that yes, we are starting from ground zero, but what do they say? That if you recognize that, that makes you responsible. So if we're recognizing that resources need to be made, that means that we need to be getting involved in creating these resources. I do know doulas have actually not been a traditionally paid position.
Yeah, no.
Just tradition. It's just not a paid position because there are natural doulas, like I said, like the aunties and the tribal women that would come and help. But this is not a this is not really a position like a nursing position or anything like that, because of our scope of practice is it's different and it's kind of broad. So with that, we are just now getting to a point where they are allowing like doulas into hospitals, actual hospitals. I do know that St. Rose has a midwifery department that they have been working on. They are also accepting doulas as well, to my knowledge. So we are starting to get into institutions and into places, but I think a lot of it really has to do with community. Building community, that's where it starts. Knowing your neighbors, knowing, how am I going to know that there's a doula if the doula doesn't work with anybody or doesn't talk to anybody or doesn't, go and talk to her neighbors. I think it's really important to not only get out with the community, but to get to places like the center and say, hey, how can I get involved? How can I volunteer? Going to different, functions with LGBTQIA, you could be going to industry parties, bar industry parties. Bar industry parties have trans people that want to have people that want to, that want to have, they want to have people too.
I mean, them babies are people.
Yes, they want to have these small people. They would like to have them. But it really is we're really just building community because that's where it starts. That's where anything starts is going back to tribal communities. It all starts with, we need help. So we're going to start exchanging information. We're going to start going from there. I wish I had more. To offer.
No, I think you just offered a lot because it does go back to community. And I think a huge issue is that we, in general, are not seeing each other as community.
We're not communitying anymore.
We're not interconnected.
Yeah.
We're not seeing that damage I do to you is damage that I do to me,
myself,
and vice versa.
Exactly.
So it doesn't seem like it's a community or a national issue that there are a bunch of like queer families that can't have kids or can't have kids the way that they want to have kids or build families in ways that are acknowledged and respected. Like, you know what I mean? When it's a challenge to get your partner on your insurance and, to legally have all parents acknowledged or,
well, and the thing is you start micro factoring. Okay. What if you're a Black trans person and you already have a third of a chance of not walking out of that hospital to begin with?
For sure.
Preface it with that. So we're talking about very compiled and complex issues that are not going to necessarily be solved overnight. But I think that the only way that we can really start actually solving these problems is to start advocating for each other in our homes, as friends, in spaces that it matters, where we clock it in the moment. Don't like that. That's not okay.
Right.
In these little ways, can we start building? And I recognize that another person clocked, a microaggression. I can be like, hey, I appreciate that. And that's a person that I can start building community. Just the littlest ways we can start building community and start learning who we can start building with, right? And from there, that's when we start going, okay, let's start, funding. Let's start crowdfunding. I think there are a lot of different ways that we could go about fixing the cracks in the system, but I think a lot of it really genuinely starts with building community and building resource.
Resource. Funding was also another thing that I was thinking, just because you said something earlier, basically about or it made me think about how a lot of this knowledge has been taken out of these communities. Like the fact that like being a doula or being a community midwife was such a common thing, in the South. That was how we had babies.
That's how we got through slavery. We literally, we had each other.
We weren't in hospitals, in the labor and delivery ward. And as nursing became more of a, industrialized thing.
Practice, yeah.
Yeah, and midwifery and doula, was taken out of the community, and it became, did you go to school for this? Were you certified in this? So as things become more regulated, and this is not me saying I'm against regulation, but as things become more regulated and more like of a academia kind of thing, it becomes more challenging to get people in these certifications.
Absolutely.
It's expensive.
This is a beautiful, beautiful thing that you've touched on, because I have it in my notes here as well. This is a part of capitalism.
Oh, for sure.
Actually, we need you to have this certification. It's not going to teach you anything, but we definitely need you to pay this $1,000 so you have this piece of paper that says if you get sued, you already knew what we taught you.
Right.
moving on. That's really what it is. And I think that if you ask somebody who is an indigenous, birth practitioner, they would laugh at you.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because these practices are not taught with a board and a piece of paper, or a pen and a piece of paper, excuse me. It's taught through showing up in those moments, looking for things. It's trained hypervigilance. It's understanding body cues and emotional cues, and it's something that a certification, you can give anybody a certification, right? You can say, I did the work, I know the answers to the questions, here you go. But that is also a kind of a dangerous part to being a doula, is because it has become so, like you said, like mass produced, factory produced, industrialized, that very harmful people can enter into these spaces as well. So that's why I said, the three things that I really think that, like, among those three things is education, and like knowing yourself, knowing your biases. Where are my weaknesses at, and where do I need to educate myself more? Because the certification is not going to help you in, an extremely microaggressive delivery room. That's not. And I've been in them, and it's not a fun time. But what I can say is that the more that we work internally, and I always say this, you can't break a system from the outside in, you have to start from the inside out. So for me, I can't check a doctor if I don't have the certification that says I can be in the room to check the doctor.
Right.
So, with me, that is kind of my approach to it. Is somebody has to be the volunteer to go, okay, I'll do the stupid part of getting the piece of paper to go on the inside, and then once I get on the inside, I create havoc. No,
I mean,
but really, we do. That's a part of it.
What you have
that's
to
part of it. That's a part of it. It, not to scare anybody, but doulas are advocates, and just as right fighting as doctors and nurses can be, doulas should have just as much of that vigor, actually more.
I think, I was going to say, I think it needs to be more, because you're oftentimes in the room advocating against people who feel that they can never be wrong.
Absolutely.
I've done this 10 times already today, and perhaps that's why you should listen to someone who's only done it once.
And maybe
today.
that's desensitized. Yeah, maybe you're desensitized a little bit. Maybe you're a little detached. Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
Or I like to remind people that, like, your OB is a surgeon. Your OB is a trained surgeon, and first and foremost.
One thing that I try to inform people on, like, when I get new clients, one thing I always say is, like, I like to explain my scope of practice, because a lot of people don't understand, like, in the delivery room, do you get to touch? No, my scope of practice is anything above the waist and outside of the body. That's literally my practice right there. I like to tell people, like, I'm more of a head birth person, and your midwife is more of a body birth person. Our scope of practice really is more, I'd say, honestly, I was thinking about it like percentages, 75% psychology.
Oh, for sure.
25% resources, and that's a doula.
For sure.
I'm not telling anybody or showing anybody to do or suggesting anything that, for one, hasn't already been done, and for two, your body isn't already capable of doing without me here cheering you on. It just makes it a little easier when I cheer you on.
Yeah, I mean, so I've assisted with one birth in person, a lot of virtual stuff, and then a lot of, like, postpartum assistance. And for me, a lot of it has been just being a listening ear and, being the person who's like, okay, I went to this appointment and this is what happened. I felt uncomfortable. Okay, let's unpack it. Let's make a list of, like, bullet points and questions for your next appointment. Do you need me on the phone for the next appointment? Who's going with you? Like, things to look out for, in addition to resources. But
it's very minimal contact.
But I do want to touch on this. I do want to touch on this because I was certified, but I worked with, shout out to her. Her name is Adriana. She's the strongest woman I've ever met in my life. The strongest Black woman I've ever met in my life. Oh, she actually, I was called in because I was a certified doula that I had gotten my COVID shot so I could go into hospitals and labor with women, right? I was a backup because her doula, she wanted to labor at home, and her doula was a home, very, very holistic, did not do the shot, but they wanted to back up. Well, it was about this time of the year, and it was in Washington State, snowing, completely snowed out. There was me and one other doula there, and the midwife couldn't make it. And we delivered that baby, just two doulas in her. And I can't even take any credit for that. That was the most powerful, amazing thing that I've ever seen. But like, as a doula, I did my job because I showed up. You want to do it yourself? That's my job, to support you in doing it yourself. If you wanted to have a baby with 76 people in the room, my job is to figure out how we're going to fit them in the room and how we're going to accommodate snacks.
Right.
Realistically,
Like, yeah.
but if you want to, like, it really is a spectrum of, you want to have this baby on the floor right now in your bathroom? Cool. Let's do it. Let's get a pillow. Let's get you comfortable. That's literally what it is.
How do I scaffold?
It is how do I, it is not, it has nothing to do with, this is how you should do it. Oh, well, I think this should be better. It is literally, what do you want to do and how can I help you make that happen? It is another form of servitude, but it's more, for me, it holds the most value because it is the most vulnerable time a person will ever go through in their experience, ever. So with that, I try not to take it with a grain of salt. So if you want to have your baby let's do this. We're gonna have the best birth, the best floor birth ever. Right. Come on, you got this. That's what I'm going to do, because it's not my job to judge. It's my job to advocate.
So as you're saying this, a lot of different things are popping up in my head. Honestly,
it's a lot.
It's so many things. But I mean, based off of what you just said just now, right? So with the overturn of Roe versus Wade, you have individuals who have to go through term in certain places, but who don't want the child, or will have to go through term knowing that the baby is already unalive inside. When in those types of situations, in that, like, what do you again, you're saying your job is to give them what they need in that time of need, but how can you, for yourself mentally, how do you approach each of those types of situations? If you're about to be there for someone who knows that their baby is unalive inside them right now, but your job is to give them the most comfortable and the most whatever they need to get through that. How do you help someone get through that? Because do they even know what they need, honestly? I feel like I wouldn't know the hell I need in that type of situation.
And sometimes people don't. Sometimes people need a moment. And a lot of times before I do anything, I say, hey, we're having a moment in life, and let's take this moment. We need to feel our feelings right now. As uncomfortable as it is, we can be uncomfortable together. But let's just ground and process this for a minute. And then it makes it a little bit easier to proceed. But I think that first and foremost, giving things pause, giving space. I'm not even gonna lie, I forgot your question.
Basically, he's asking.
I had it.
How are we showing up for people who are basically put in like stillbirth positions?
Okay. And so I think that there's okay. First and foremost, there's no right or wrong way to grieve, right? You have to take that moment to process that this is actually happening. I think one thing that we don't really talk about enough is radical acceptance. And as a doula, the space of radical acceptance, and as frequent as we visit that space, is not something that we speak about enough.
Yeah, I agree.
A lot of times we are simultaneously going through our own spectrum of emotions while you are going through yours, right? Finding a space of, this is really happening. Now that this is happening, what is the best thing that I can do that is going to serve this person in their highest good, right? And if that is just sitting with you and allowing you space to grieve and feel, then we'll do that. If that is getting on the phone and finding somebody that can fix it.
Yeah.
And when I say fix it, IYKYK, we'll put it that way. Damn it, I'm going to find somebody to fix it.
Yeah.
That is another part to being a doula that we don't talk about. There are death doulas that are literally trained to specifically help you grieve the stillbirth, the abortion.
Okay, hold on. Pause for a second. I'm sorry. You got me with the acronyms. You over spelling letters and stuff. Okay.
If you know.
I figured. I realized that then.
If
but
you're
then,
a black woman and you're losing your rights, you know.
Right.
You know.
But then, okay, so.
And again, that's a space.
That's
that
community. That's
people
community
have been in,
resourcing.
you know.
That is.
So, but
this is
what's
not,
a death doula? Is that so? Is a death doula like Macy Gray and Tyler Perry?
So if you know that, okay,
No.
I'm gonna give you. Oh,
I done upset everybody right now. I'm sorry.
I try to say goodbye and not choke.
I can't even wait one Macy Gray or Tyler Perry.
Oh my goodness.
So not that, right?
No.
Or
So what I'm gonna say is there are times. I'm gonna give you an example. Tay-Sachs disease. It is a fatal, awful disease that a lot of times people will choose to terminate prior to birth because the chances of them having a pain-free life are slim to none, and we'll put it that way. It's a very debilitating, horrible disease. If you know that there's no way that you can bring forth life and give life the life that it deserves, a lot of times they will give you the option to eliminate the pregnancy, abortion, or, sometimes people know that they're going to be having a stillborn, and that's a lot. So there are people that I just kind of like we're trained to deal with birth. They're trained to deal with grief and death, and their whole job is to help you not to run from it, but to sit in it and to feel it and to take every moment. So death doulas can do anything from helping you to put together the arrangements to, calling photographers so you can do a little photo shoot with your baby before, the services. Or you have to understand that everybody's different and everybody's life experience is different and everybody grieves different. So therefore, there needs to be a person that can create space for whatever that may look like to you. And there's nothing
Gotcha.
wrong with that.
Yeah, no,
it seems very abnormal, but I think that we need to start normalizing death. We need to start normalizing grief because it's something that is inevitable. It's something that every one of us goes through. So why not have a person that's there that already knows, hey, I have these resources. This is going to be a time, if you lose a child, that's a time when your brain's not going to work. Yeah. Your brain is literally trying to fathom how that could happen, how your child could leave this earth before you. The last thing you're going to want to do is look up the clothes that you're going to want your baby to wear.
Yeah.
And death doulas are not exclusive to childbirth.
Not at all.
Like there are death doulas that you can contact to
for
help.
Hospice
and your own arrangements. If you know that you are getting ready to die, you can hire a death doula to work with you and your family to just ease
help
that
the transition.
Yeah,
and that's really what this is about. Being a doula, a birth doula, and this is what I tried to tell people. I actually did. I did in-home care and hospice before I was a doula. That's a fun fact. So it's about standing at a very awkward. It's having a foot between two worlds.
Oh, for sure.
And being a middleman.
For sure.
And I think there are a lot of places in life where you will find kind of a crossroads where there's life and death, where there's happy and sad, and having somebody there to help you navigate that is really, really helpful,
Yeah. For sure. For sure. I agree with you on we do need to normalize death. I mean, I think that we are very uncomfortable with death and just getting older.
I think that it's because, honestly, and I clock it, we live in a country that's built on ego.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
So we're never going to die.
I mean, all I've been thinking about personally is the death. And I say that to say because women, as y'all's rights have pretty much been taken away from you with your body, that's all I can see for women in general, unfortunately, because the government has now forced y'all to put yourselves to be forced to be put into situations that you don't really have much control over.
For sure.
And I mean, that's all I'm wondering how the hell.
What I am going to say to this, I do want us to say this. With the overturning of Roe v. Wade, they did not eliminate abortion. What they eliminated was the access to safe and legally protected abortions. That's what we lost access to.
Yeah.
Don't think that 7,200 people are online right now Googling how to
Yeah, how to do
How to do it.
how to do the abortions that our ancestors did.
They're
before.
not
The Macy
going
grave,
away.
the Macy grave.
That's what I'm saying.
You know,
And that's what I'm
This is
saying. And that's all I'm thinking about, because in that movie, the young lady died
I mean, if
because
you,
the ancestry way was not the cleanliness way.
I mean, it puts people in danger in so many different ways, because they're literal children who are now being forced to have children because they've been raped or molested.
Absolutely.
And they're in states where they can't get an abortion, or they're supposed to be able to get an abortion, but red tape makes it
And this
so
is the
impossible.
thing, and let's all just address this. It is that is a timely matter. Having abortion is not, people seem to think that like abortion all 9 months, that people are walking in at 8 months pregnant, like, oh, I'm over
Not
it,
at all.
having abortions. That's
Not
not
at all.
actually what's happening.
Right.
That's not what's happening.
Or they're gonna abort babies after they're born. Like, that's
Absolutely
not what
Then
happens.
she said that in the debate, the presidential debate, when because he said something like that, and she was like, no one's doing that.
Nobody's doing that.
No baby
That's
has
what I'm
ever
saying,
been
like,
aborted
Yeah,
after
like,
birth.
no
Like,
one's doing that. Where did
Nobody's
you
like,
get that
okay,
from?
I just had this baby, let me abort it.
Right.
It's for one, it's not possible.
Right.
We won't talk about that medically. It's not possible. That would
But
defeat the whole.
That goes back to
Contradictory.
education. Like,
Yeah.
we're not an educated country. We don't even know
that's
what
really,
an abortion is.
That's really what the problem comes down to at the end of the day. Because if people understood pro-choice didn't mean I'm not taking your right to believe whatever you believe away, I just feel like there's space for everybody. Once people stop feeling like they're being attacked and that their, Jesus beliefs are being attacked, I think that things would be, there would be a lot more eyes just like, oh, okay. So I'm actually not losing anything and everybody's gaining something. Wow. Look at that. There will be a lot of full circle moments and I'm going to say this, at the cost of lives. And that's very sad.
I mean, I want to believe that, but there should have already been. Like, there's already been a lot of people who have died in it specifically because of poor maternal and child care. And I mean, this was happening before Roe v. Wade was overturned, but even more so now. And so to me,
It's disheartening, and it's in the opposite
it
direction.
is, and it's
Absolutely.
the irony of people saying that they are pro-life when, like, the
we don't
result
even
of
value
this
life that's here.
Yeah, it's like okay, first off, like, if we really want to get into it, you're forcing people to have children that they can't take care of,
That they don't want.
and now the state, you're forcing them to become welfare children because the state has to take care of them. Like, what quality of life are they now having? And we're not funding education.
Right.
We're not funding healthcare.
You want to take away the stuff that the state has, but then you want to force these people to have these kids to go into the state.
Right.
So how at all is that?
So it's very ironic to say that you are pro-life and you don't want to lose any created life, but you're also not investing in anything that is going to nourish this life.
Yeah, make life better for everyone.
Or make life easier for the parent that's being forced to have them, that now has to, like, take care of this child. And then let's not even talk about if it's one of these pregnancies that, like, is resulting in, like, a complication, or it's just there's so many factors in it, and to me it just kind of feels like a power play of, like, I want to say that, like, I have control over this, or
It really is. That's what it.
My way is the way. It's weird to me to want to control that.
This is my thing. If it's not autonomy, then it's control.
Yeah.
If you are not giving and receiving autonomy, then it is control. And at that point, clock me out. So back to what you were saying, are there still going to be abortions? Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure.
Are we still going to have resources? Absolutely. Are your doulas still going to be the ones at the end of the day that you can go to and say, hey, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But that's why I also say that going forward, we need to, this is something I think that just in the doula community that we need to address while we are working with the LGBTQIA community, talking about safety precautions, keeping our names, being anonymous, working as secretly as we can, because that's what we do well. But
do you think there's I'm sorry to interrupt, but secretly, like you're saying, keep being anonymous, remaining anonymous. do you feel like, I mean, because nothing surprises me anymore, honestly, but do you think something that y'all do will end up being taken away?
Yes.
Oh, for sure.
You were so ready to
Speaking to the mic. Yes.
Oh, for sure.
I think that I think that you have to be a very brave person to do this work. I think you have to be very brave to do any kind of advocacy, but especially if you're advocating for women and people who are birthing. Like, unfortunately, we're like very low in the power structure of things. And I think it's because we have the power to create life, you know, and
Absolutely.
we are a cornerstone of existence, that like this desire to take that power or control that power is so strong. But at the end of the day, you're an easy target because you're trying to provide these services that are, you know, illegal. And you just have to be prepared. Honestly, it's just like organizing, you know, you have to, you have to be prepared.
That's what I was going to say is like, you know, protesters at night are right fighters during the day. You know what I mean? A lot of us have positions where we're already advocating for people, where we're already showing up for people. This is just another extension of that. And really, this is just me taking my online business and doing it at night in the dark and secret. You know what I mean? This is really, that's what the transition is like, oh, I just don't get to be as flagrant with it. Nothing's really changing. Nothing's really changing. We're still going to be doing the same work that we've been doing. We are still going to be providing resources and showing up. We are still going to be doing the things that have been passed down from us from generations and generations and generations. And it doesn't matter what law is going to be out there.
Yeah.
If a woman doesn't want something in her body, she's going to find a way to get it out. You're simply just blocking safe access to that at this point.
Yeah. It really just shows a lack of concern about the well-being of the people who are giving birth, really, to just say that, like, we need you to keep making babies, but we really don't care if
we don't care what
it
happens
out.
to them.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, if you make it out alive or whatever, like, that's
fine.
really what it boils down to me a little bit.
I mean, and when you even just hearing that sentence that you just formed, that internally disgusts me that is what is happening, and the fact
We're
that no one
breeding
else is
farm
really
at this
disgusted
point.
by that.
Yeah.
And I think we need to just be honest with ourselves and others. We are a breeding farm for capitalism right now.
Yeah.
They need more people to work. And our generation's kind of catching on to stuff, and we're dropping off, and they want numbers. That's
And
what
they
it is.
need more people to work for free.
Exactly.
So, you know, like, we can't get rid of the jails. We can't educate you. And we can't provide job opportunities so you can take care of yourself.
Actually,
because we need modern slavery in these
Yeah.
privately owned prisons
Exactly.
to still continue.
That's really what they're saying is
Right.
isn't because of how far we are in to our knees with capitalism, how far we are in with this debt. This is them saying this is the only way out of it is slavery. We need something. We don't have any more resources, so we now need human labor.
But the Pentagon just lost like $84 billion, apparently.
Oh,
It's
where
just
did that
like-
go? Let's address that.
It's just a lot, but y'all can't pay for schools. Like, we, like,
There's
you know,
aliens in the ocean, and we can't pay for schools.
or like, it's just,
I'm done.
I'm sorry, I just had to remember I have a job. I was about to say something. I'll say that when we stop recording. But, like, you know, it's just when you think about funding and research, things like that, like, is so important. And where money goes is important. You know,
Transparency is important.
transparency is important. You know, apparently there's a bill being voted on tomorrow that
I saw that.
basically says that Congress can just stop the funding
For any
nonprofit
for any
by
reason
saying
at
that
any time.
it's labeled as terrorist activity.
So
And
Get the hell out of
that's
Dodge.
what
Yeah.
I'm saying. By moving forward and working the way that we have been working may not work in the future. That is why I am
Word.
saying we
Where-
are going back in time.
where's the
So we
camera?
need to.
Representative Susie Lee, please. I saw you voted yay last time. Can we nay that, please? Shout out to
right in the
Congressman Horsford for your nay. Let's nay that again.
Hey.
But because it's just like
You come to the cookout.
right. I mean, it's just voting is important. Education is important. Like funding is important. All of these things matter, and they're being chipped away slowly but surely. And like our general voting public is like, I mean, Project 2025 came out, but he's not gonna take
wouldn't
away.
do that.
He's not gonna
He
take
wouldn't
away
do
the
that.
Affordable
every
Care
idiot
Act.
who just said
Like-
who don't believe in it, who don't
Obamacare.
believe.
He's taking away Obamacare, but not the Affordable Care Act. Have you heard that one?
Well, he's gonna get all these people off welfare, but not me and my Medicaid.
Not my Medicaid.
The Medicaid that you got from the Department of Welfare Services. Like, you know, we're just not. We just aren't educated. We don't know what we don't know, and we think we know everything because America's the best and we're number one.
And this is
Duh.
But this is why they say learn your history, because if you know your history, you'll know where you're going.
But that's why we can't teach history anymore.
Right, exactly.
I was about to
That's
say,
being
goodbye.
so.
No,
You know,
can't teach that.
that's going to have to be in an underground library someplace. All the
really-
actual history.
And that's really, I guess, where all of this is headed. Is we're just going to end up doing what our grandmothers and our grandfathers told us that they were doing.
Yeah.
Yep.
Do it in private. Do it in secret. Keep your mouth closed. Keep your head down.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think a big challenge is that our generation is kind of like off that a little bit.
This is my thing. I feel like I'm the perfect definition of this because I like to fake people out, right? Oh, I'll be quiet and I'm going to wait until your most vulnerable moment when we going to flip the script and burn it down.
I mean, I wish everyone would have that thought.
I really do, but this is why I say that's why I corrupt systems from internally. You got to be on the inside in order to break it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You got to know where the power switch is. You got to get a layout. You got to get your little recon. You got to recon the area. And that's the thing. But this is the thing. I know that is my role in this as a Black woman is to recon the area, feel people out, sweet talk them, do what needs to be done, but to also have the resources for what needs to be done at night.
Yeah, for sure.
You know what I mean? I feel like right now we're getting ready to shift into a very violent time. And I think that we also need to be very honest with ourselves and everybody else about what is coming. Doesn't matter which way we go. There's going to be some pretty intense feelings going on and some pretty high tensions. And with that, though, I would like to say, I think a good bit of Black women, though, we're kind of sitting that out. We're at this point where a lot of us are just going to get real quiet.
Yeah.
Just don't sit back and let it do what it do.
But the challenge with that is the interconnectedness is real, and we will still be impacted, unfortunately.
No matter what happens with this, and I think that that's why I'm going to say the divine feminine had a moment during the election where we were all like, oh. It was the moment of realization that that was exactly where we were headed, and that there wasn't really getting around that anymore.
Yeah.
And I think that that's why everybody's been quiet, is because we recognize there is no not being affected from this.
Yeah.
There is no walking away from this unscathed.
Yeah. You also said we're going into a period of violence, and unfortunately, I agree, and I think it's important to highlight that violence is not only physical, and I think people forget that be a lot of different ways to be violent.
Absolutely.
And to enforce violence on people.
When I say we're heading into a very violent time, whether the institutions we have stay intact, there are going to be people that are upset that they're there.
Oh, for sure.
Because of Project 2025. And then, God forbid, they not exist. Can't even sit in that one. Is so uncomfortable to sit with. That one is that's all you can get out. I get it. But no matter what, I think it's really important for us to see that there's not winning. There's no winning in this right now. There's so much separation that there is no winning. The pendulum has swung too far to the left. It's swung too far to the right. It's got too much momentum right now. So, as doulas, I think it is very important for us to self-care the shit out of ourselves right now.
For sure.
I think it's really important for us to create and stay within our circles, to create and network within our circles, and to build our communities still. maybe not as loud and proud as we did it before. Maybe a little bit more methodical, maybe a little more thoughtful.
So how do you encourage other individuals to do this? Like, for the necessity of this moving forward, how do we encourage individuals to, be such as yourself, to take this path, to do it safely, and at the same time, let individuals know to do it safely and out there?
Well, I say first, figure out if you're actually called to do this.
Knowledge is power.
Yeah, figure out what your calling is, because like this shit is heavy. Like I love it, but it's heavy, and I tried to distance myself because I was having my own trauma that I was dealing with, and it was too heavy for me to engage, and I knew that I couldn't support people until I had dealt with my own shit, right? And I, like you said, you're standing with one foot in the door of life and one foot in the door of death, right? So it's heavy. You have to address your own emotions. You have to address your own pain, your own baggage, and you have to be ready to hold space for someone else. So if you know you can't hold space for someone else, like if you're the person that somebody calls you to vent for 5 minutes and you like, I gotta go, somebody calling me, the teapot whistling, not for you. It's probably not for you, right? You need to figure out where's your spot in this fight, right? And if you're like, well, I'm still very passionate about like maternal health, about birth work, about whatever.
Chest feeding.
Right.
Lactation consulting.
Yeah, figure out where your piece is. Like maybe you need to be doing like there's a lot of programs for like maternal like health systems and things like that. Maybe your administration, you don't necessarily need to be
you're out starting groups, exactly.
Right, yeah, maybe you're funding, maybe you're in policy work. So there's a lot of different ways to get into this that is not necessarily like I want to be in the room.
I need to help you set up your family. Yeah. I want to help you with all of the things in your home.
Yeah, you don't necessarily have to be doing the birth plan and postpartum. Like, that doesn't necessarily have to be your realm. If that is your realm, education. Figure out where do you want to train? Like, to what extent do you want to train? Do you want to be a midwife? Do you want to be a doula? Do you want to do lactation consulting? Do you want to do, like, childbirth education? There's so many different things to do. And figuring out what way do you want to do it? Do you want to be trained in the community? Do you want to be trained as a certified nurse midwife? Do you want to be like, there's different ways to get these different certifications and get your foot in the door. But I think the biggest thing after figuring out, is this for me, is to start to get into it, because
I think
it's
that's
needed.
Really important too, is to like you said, for first and foremost, I think knowledge is power. That's the number one. It's one thing to know how to be a doula. It's another thing to know yourself and to know where your biases lie, to know that I actually don't work well with this demographic because I have triggers, or I don't think that I'm going to be helpful in this situation because I'm biased in some way, shape, or form, and I just don't feel it. Understanding that you can't help everybody. Your experience is not going to best serve every single person that you meet and every client you have. So also knowing where your boundaries lie. Once again, is my cup full because I can't serve from an empty cup? Once again, where do I want to be? Who do I want to work with? Where do I want my footing to be? This is literally building a brand for showing up. That's exactly what it is. And it looks different for everybody, whether it's going to be in a hospital, like you said, in hospital settings, whether it's going to be in home settings, and strictly, working with midwives. It is what you make it, of course. But I think that simply having the freedom to create whatever you want it to look like is the best part about being a doula, and that's the best part about coming into people's homes and to helping them to provide that for their families and stuff too. I think that that's going to be going forward key is really just educating yourself, knowing your own wants and needs, and knowing how you can best show up for those around you.
So where do we find that education? Because you're saying, because if
depends on where you're at. Yeah, that's a big thing.
So for instance, somebody in the Midwest, because I feel like the Midwest needs a lot of education.
Stop.
Stop. Clock it. Clock it.
Right. Okay.
I feel like you might have.
Are we being ignorant?
Ignorant. That's an interesting choice of words.
Listen.
Are we being biased to our Midwestern brothers and
Nah.
sisters?
Well,
Well,
Take that back.
all I'm gonna say is I feel like this. I feel like listen. How do we find it? All right.
Okay.
How do we help them
Finding
get it?
I'm finding it.
There's a lot of different places. I'll shout out where I'm doing my training currently because I've really been enjoying it. BADT, which is Birthing Advocate Doula Training. They're based in Atlanta, but they do everything online. So I really enjoy them, and I feel very comfortable plugging them in their program. And then I feel like a lot of people recommend, with a grain of salt, recommend the Dona. Oh, see?
So I did Dona.
The grain of salt.
I did Dona through Bastyr University. And
Oh, let's talk about them offline,
let's talk about
too.
them offline.
Yeah.
Offline.
Yes.
But I have to be honest with you. I had the best teacher. She was amazing. She was amazing. Lori Levy. She was amazing. I can say that it depends on your state. It really does. Different states have different regulations. They have different, some states do require you to have some prerequisites before you're actually a certified doula. Some states don't, and it depends. Like I said, I got mine during COVID. There wasn't quite as many regulations, and they didn't need the money quite as much as they do now.
Right.
Let's
Yeah.
just be honest.
Yeah.
So, I am actually going to not shout that out. I'm going to say, as a aspiring doula, this is your first task to start looking at schools and resources and seeing what best fits you in the area that you're going to serve. That's a very, very specific topic. So I'm not going to shout out. Like I said, I did go to Dona.
I bring them up
But,
only because, like after my first training, I felt like and this I don't want this to come out wrong. I felt like there was such a focus on the advocacy portion and making sure that everyone understood the very racist history of
I can say Dona definitely did a good job with that.
Right.
Yep.
So I felt like the training that I did focused so much on that they did not focus enough on like labor.
So I have to be honest with you, I felt the same way when I got to the end of it. I was like, did I really learn anything about labor that I didn't already know?
Right. So
No, but I learned everything about unpacking my own internalized biases, though.
right. So that's why I throw it out there. Like, just make sure that you actually know your birthing info. Because that'll get scary when you're in
I mean, it can, and this is my thing. Like I
If
try
you
to
don't
tell
know.
everybody, once you get the process, you never lose it, and you just see it. It's kind of like once you get it, you get it. If you know, you know.
Are there an abundant amount of schools that or programs like what you're in? There are an abundant amount
for sure.
State to state, absolutely.
Okay.
And then there are different programs that you can do that are like just like little classes, like 2-hour workshops and stuff like that you can go and actually be a part of, where you can learn, just basic obstetrics, like not, nothing, of course, nothing where you could go out and practice on people.
Right.
But they will teach you basic obstetrics and
Yeah. Or like, so the training that I have done is full spectrum. But not everyone wants to do a full spectrum training, and that would include like prenatal, birth, and postpartum.
Yeah, and postpartum's not for everybody. I've done it.
It's
not for everybody.
See, I like postpartum assistance because I personally, as a Black woman, I feel that it's extremely important to make sure that like my clients have good postpartum care. You good? Baby's here, but is you good?
So I got to be honest with you. That is beautiful, and I commend you for that. What I can say is I have weak boundaries when it comes to when the child is here.
Oh.
That's a personal thing. I genuinely just know my own. I have weak boundaries because if I know that there's a cute, snuggly baby and you're in pain and I get to snuggle the baby while you're in pain and I get to clean your house, I get to play. Like, I love that role. So I got to create boundaries for myself. I don't actually volunteer for postpartum anymore.
One thing about me, I love a baby. I love a dog. My favorite part, giving it back to your mama, back to your parent, because it's not mine. This baby's so cute. Come on, you made a beautiful baby.
Get
Take
on
it
up
back.
out here.
I gotta go.
I love the idea of postpartum, and you know, in a pinch, I will do volunteer work. You know, if somebody's really like in a pinch, it's happened a few times more than it should have. But I think that's
question. The thought just popped into my head, and this might be a dumb question. Are there men doulas? Is that a thing?
Oh, for sure.
There are men
course.
doulas?
There are
Absolutely.
two-spirited people do doula work. Actually,
Yeah.
that's quite common for like
Okay.
shamans and, you know, two-spirited people. Like it's kind
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
of, yeah.
I love meeting men doulas. I find it awesome. It's like, it's funny. It's like when people are like, "Oh my God, you're a man and a nurse, or you're a man and
You're
a
a nurse?"
teacher." Like, it's like, yeah, like men
They
can
can
be
be
nurturing
empathetic
too.
too.
Like, they're humans.
And I'm not saying, well, no, wait, I don't know a nurturing man, so I guess that's why I asked that damn question.
you are
But
a man. Like, you don't have a nurturing bone in your body.
well, okay,
I
a
was about to say lies
cisgendered,
before
uh,
Vinny lies. Let me just say lies.
a cisgendered man. I don't know a nurturing cisgendered man.
I know some. They're
I know
rare.
very, very few, and I really don't. I find that to be. I mean, I would be shocked as hell if a man told me he was a doula, because I'd catch me the hell off guard. But I'm for it. I want men to be nurturing, to do something.
Yeah,
like that.
I mean, I think that just shows that our society is sad that we don't think that we can create nurturing men.
That is very sad.
And
yeah,
I mean,
our society is sad.
but we want men to be parents, and like we
That's
need
what I was gonna
parents to
say
be
though. Like,
nurturing.
if you let's really get into that, okay? Because you said that with your whole chest.
Word,
Okay.
right?
Are
Let's
men
unpack it.
not parents though?
Well, you know, a lot of men do say that they're babysitting their children when they're watching them, and I always find that
Okay.
fascinating. Like, is the co-parent paying you for your time?
Babysitting whose baby?
Right, the baby you
baby
just
is
brought
it?
home from the hospital.
Oh,
that
that's
you
your
made?
child.
Your
Gotcha.
child.
So
You're watching your
parenting.
child.
Got it. Clock
You're
it.
living your life. You're not babysitting, sir.
This is your best one.
Right.
But I mean, I come from a generation of, and I mean, the men in my family weren't exactly, no.
Yeah.
So,
I can understand that, and I think that maybe what is empathetic and nurturing in your perspective may be different from person to person, right? But at the same time, I think that that's another thing that's important to do within trans families, is to have I call it equitable parenting, right? And that's, everybody has a role, everybody has a task, and it doesn't have to be gender specific. It can just be, you know what, you're really good at words of affirmation. That's actually one of your own love languages. I'm going to have you teach our kid how to drive, or I'm going to have you do potty training, or you're going to be the person that, you know, X, Y, and Z. It's about understanding your strengths, right? Everybody has a strength, and that strength can be honed in upon and taught and passed on with love. Is that not empathy? Is that not, you know what I mean? Might not be this maternal strong connection that we've been brainwashed to think that everybody's supposed to have, but everybody has their own way of connecting. And just because one parent connects with their child in a silent room across the room, they don't talk to each other, and that's how they are connecting. You know, I was a talkative child. I wanted to talk with my parents, and that was the way we connected. But I think it's important to understand there is no right or wrong way for a parent to be a parent and connect with their child.
I hear you. I hear you.
Also, just thinking about like men as doulas, I think that's so powerful because one, it kind of breaks the stereotype of like what a birth worker looks like, or you know what you think of with this nurturing role, but also in a space of advocacy, right? Like that could be really powerful to have a man as your doula, especially if you're in a hospital setting.
I agree. I'm for it. I feel like, and that's why I asked, because I don't know, but I feel like men, given our current where we're at, I feel like if a man is watching this and feels inclined to sit here and take that route,
do it.
Definitely do it. Do it. And whether or not the fact that I didn't know of any, that's just me. But hell, I'm sitting here thinking, I'm like, well, shit, is this something I could do? Could I do this?
I mean, I had men in both of my doula trainings. So
I did not. I have to be honest with you. There were no men in my doula training at all.
Yeah, I did.
However, like I would be really, really open to that. I think that would be amazing because you got to think about that. So like one more perspective that's adding towards, you know what I mean? It's you know, as I feel like as women, we have our own ways of connecting and stuff like that, and we've got our own ways. It would be really kind of interesting to hear the experience and the perspective of a male doula. I wonder.
Yeah. I also think that if there were more men working as doulas and working in this space of birth work, it would really shift the way that we look at reproductive health and reproductive justice.
Agreed. Yeah.
You know, the concept.
And reproductive normalities.
Yeah.
Let's just be honest. Like, we need to start normalizing these not being gender-specific roles. You know what I mean? Because that's kind of what the vibe.
But
like,
then we would have to break down the way that we specified labor for gender. You know,
absolutely.
Then we'd have to change
Then
society.
we'd have to change society, the whole paradigm of the universe. It's probably not going to happen on Wednesday, but
yeah, maybe
we
by
can hope
like
for
my
big
next
things.
birthday.
You know, big things we can.
Who
hope
knows?
for. You never know.
I'm gonna ask for it for Christmas.
Oh, big wishes. Okay.
Ooh.
But,
Right. I'll Santa baby it.
I call the Grinch. She just takes it.
Maybe if I sing it like Eartha Kitt, you know, Santa baby, right? Maybe
Get some Mariah Carey up in there, you know.
Oh my God! All I want for Christmas is reproductive justice.
Yes. I
Yes.
literally was gonna make that my post on Christmas. All I wanted for Christmas were my rights.
Yes. The right to my womb.
What did I get? Sadness.
Yeah. Dr. Oz.
Dr. Oz.
Director
No.
of CMS.
Matt Gates. That's what we got.
You gotta wrap it on up.
Well,
This has been great.
this has been amazing.
I feel like we need a part 2.
Absolutely.
Well, I'm always down to have these types of conversations.
I did want to kind of share something before we leave, and I just wrote this in my notes, and I just looked. It's just nice, but doulas play a critical role in advocacy. These are mothers, these are aunties, these are tribal women who showed up in the most vulnerable moments of others. Not only are we advocates, we are freedom fighters. We are autonomy protectors. We stand at the precipice of life for the sole purpose to create safe spaces. It sounds poetic, but it really is the most beautiful experience I've ever been a part of. So, thank you so much for having us.
Very
Thank you so
welcome.
much
Thank
for
you
creating
for having
space.
this conversation. Because I am concerned. I got so many sisters. I know so many women.
Valid.
I know so many
Yeah.
women. I'm just
Absolutely.
concerned, and I want to be able to provide these resources and know that there's hope. Got to create hope in the Black community. So,
Absolutely.
For sure.
Absolutely.
all right, ladies. Till next time. Oh wait, last time I was supposed to say give it exit. What am I doing? This is Transcend Breaking Boundaries.
Say it with your chest, with
Say
some,
it
some zeal, some fervor.
All right. This is Transcend Breaking Boundaries.
There you go.
Cheers.
Beautiful.
We love that.